how the use of technology in today's digital era has really changed our lives for good and for bad. So let's start off with the good.
Okay, so there are things that technology has definitely done which has completely changed people's lives. And I don't mean getting your groceries in 10 minutes, that's not a life-changing service, though it's convenient.
Yes.
But I mean truly life-changing, like for example, mobility. So there are a couple of examples in my book. One of them is a visually challenged person in Kathmandu, and there is another person with a spinal problem who's physically challenged in Colombo, who had narrated how ride-hailing completely transformed their lives. Because you know how South Asian cities are, right? You have broken pavements, there's no light, the traffic is unruly, people can't walk. Even able-bodied people can't walk. So for a physically challenged person, it's a nightmare. But with the coming of ride-hailing, these people are able to go out confidently to wherever they want, because they get picked up at their homes and they can go wherever they want in a safe way. The ride can be completely tracked. So it's been transformative for such people who are mobility challenged. That's an example of good tech, as you call it.
What about bad?
So bad, there are several examples. One of them I can tell you is that our relationship with food. We come from a culture where, we have this idea of niyamit ahar, niyam se khana. So with food delivery, you can literally on tap get anything from anywhere at any time. So the number of midnight eaters has really proliferated, and there is no niyam anymore. So that is one thing.
So what is the biggest consequence of this instant gratification that this ease of living, has probably sprung in from this technology?
A sense of isolation.
Okay.
When we used to go out to the shops nearby, outside in the community, we met some people, and we got to know what's happening in the community, we got to know what's happening in the neighborhood. That part is totally gone, and these are what are called social lubricants. So these little shops in the community are actually hubs of social interaction. So when people sit at home and get everything at home, that gets shut off, and therefore your community interaction gets cut off.
What should startup entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs really look at taking away from what has the technological disruption caused?
We're living in an age where information is power. So the tech platform, whichever company, whoever wants to open, has all the power because they have the data of all the other stakeholders. So to use that power responsibly is on their shoulders, right? A lot of people don't really know what, they may send WhatsApp messages and they may make reels, but they don't know beyond that how tech influences them. So, and that's why you have, so many cases of digital arrest and things like that happening. So, it's up to the company to act responsibly with that information and, create a fair playing field for all stakeholders. Some sort of responsible capitalism is what.
The traditional forms of jobs, they are again being seen as at risk with emerging technologies like AI, and then we want to understand what is the importance of gig economy, gig workers, and how is it going to grow.
Post-pandemic, all the people who lost their jobs and whose businesses shut down, in hordes they became cab drivers and delivery agents. The difference between what's happening here and what was happening in the US is that these are main providers for their family. This is their main livelihood. So they work 10 hours, 14 hours, and therefore it's sort of become what I call a permanent gig, which is like a contradiction in terms. It's like an oxymoron because there's no such thing as a permanent gig. A gig by definition is a side hustle.
What was the last thing that you ordered online, and did you get an OTP for it? Now, this one-time password is not just a fleeting code that comes and goes, but in fact, it has fundamentally changed the way we trust, transact, and also consume in this new digital age. Hello and welcome. You're watching Booked. I'm Sakshi Batra. In this latest edition, we are going to do a deep dive into the book that is authored by Vandana Vasudevan. This is called OTP Please, and it really looks into the world of online buyers, sellers, and gig workers across South Asia. Warm welcome to you, Vandana. Good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. It's such a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, and of course, it was fascinating to read your book as well. Now, you know, every book really starts off with a spark, Vandana. I want to understand what was that aha moment for you that really said something in your mind that this story needs to be told.
Okay. So during the pandemic, like everyone else, I was cooped up in my house and I spent a lot of time on the balcony. And though there was nothing much happening in the building where I live, one thing that was constant was that there were these delivery workers in different colored t-shirts going in and out no matter what time of the day or night. So I got curious about them and I was wondering, who are these worker ants of the e-commerce explosion that's happening in our country? So I was wondering, what were they doing before people started buying online, and what were their livelihoods before that? And this kind of job didn't even exist a few years ago. So how do they feel about this job, and do they feel part of the glamorous startup industry that they are actually part of? So all this got me curious, and I started going down and chatting with them and understanding what they're doing and how they feel about their work and about the future of their jobs. And some people were happy, a lot of people were not. And I got to know that one of their most vocal union leaders, Sheikh Salahuddin, he lives in Hyderabad, and I also live in Hyderabad. So I got to meet him, and he directed me to some activists in Delhi, and whom I went and met. And then I went to Jaipur, where the government of Rajasthan had just passed a bill about, for the welfare of gig workers. So it was an interesting place to go and meet delivery workers, cab drivers, etc. And then I got into their WhatsApp group. So I was, having a ringside view of their life and what they're talking about, what their issues are. So in the beginning, I just only wanted to write about gig workers because there was so much to say.
Yeah.
And then I realized that they don't exist in a vacuum, right? So gig workers are there because somebody wants their service, somebody wants things delivered at their doorstep really fast, and those are customers. So then it became sort of almost necessary to understand, who are these customers? Who wants to eat fried chicken at midnight? Who doesn't want to go down to the Kirana store to buy even a single thing? And I wanted to understand that psychology. Then when I started talking to food delivery workers, I realized that restaurants, most of them small eateries, have a big role to play in that equation. And then there's Amazon, which is really, it's just thousands of small sellers over there. So all of these parts became important to understand, to tell the whole story, and that's
absolutely. So you are actually, touching base upon so many things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis now. Now let's actually give an overview to our audiences to really munch on when we want to find out about how the use of technology in today's digital era has really changed our lives for good and for bad. So let's start off with the good.
Okay. So, there are things that technology has definitely done which has completely changed people's lives. And I don't mean getting your groceries in 10 minutes. That's not a life-changing service, though it's convenient. But I mean truly life-changing, like for example, mobility. So there are a couple of examples in my book. One of them is a visually challenged person in Kathmandu, and there is another person with a spinal problem who's physically challenged in Colombo, who had narrated how ride-hailing completely transformed their lives. Because you know how South Asian cities are, right? You have broken pavements, there's no light, the traffic is unruly, people can't walk. Even able-bodied people can't walk. So for a physically challenged person, it's a nightmare. But with the coming of ride hailing,
Yes.
these people are able to go out confidently to wherever they want because they get picked up at their homes and they can go wherever they want in a safe way. Some, they can be, the ride can be completely tracked. So it's been transformative for such, people who are mobility challenged. That's an example of good tech, as you call it.
What about bad?
So, bad, there are several examples. One of them I can tell you is that our relationship with food. We come from a culture where, we have this idea of niyamit ahar, niyam se khana. So, with food delivery, you can literally on tap get anything from anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
So the number of midnight eaters has really proliferated, and there is no niyam anymore.
Yes.
So that is one thing.
So what is the biggest consequence of this instant gratification that this ease of living, has probably sprung in from this technology? What would you say?
Yeah, I think from the research that I did talking to a lot of people for the book, one thing of course the circadian rhythm has completely gone awry. So people can on tap get any food anytime, and along with Netflix it's a lethal combination. So that rhythm of daily life has completely changed. One is that. The other also, and this I feel strongly about, is a sense of isolation.
Okay.
When we used to go out to the shops nearby, outside in the community, we met some people and, we got to know what's happening in the community, we got to know what's happening in the neighborhood. Yeah. That part is totally gone. And these are, what are called social lubricants. So these little shops in the community are actually hubs of social interaction. So when people sit at home and get everything at home, that gets shut off, and therefore your community interaction gets gets
absolutely
cut off too.
So Vandana, you talked about isolation, and that's one of the aspects that you've mentioned in the book as well, where you did say that in fact this was very interesting, that instead of dividing your book as gig workers or as buyers and sellers, you've actually mentioned a lot of chapters as emotions. So what was the thought behind it, and could you also detail for all our viewers what are the biggest or some of the most impactful emotions that we go through when we are in this digital world?
Okay, so I spent a lot of time thinking about the structure of the book. Yeah. Right? And for the longest time it was customers, sellers and workers. And I thought I would just compartmentalize all the stories that I have into these boxes. And then after I had written quite a bit of it, I realized that, this is not it, because there are some common threads running through whether you're a customer or worker or seller, you feel those emotions. So for example, let's take anxiety. Okay, we see a lot of media reports about passengers in ride-hailing cabs, especially women, who have felt anxious because they feel that the driver is behaving in a suspicious manner. But I was really, it was eye-opening for me to hear so many drivers who also feel anxious, especially on Friday nights, Saturday nights, when they pick up drunk passengers of any gender who sit behind and misbehave. They are drunk themselves, or they threaten not to pay. All kinds of things happen, and the drivers are facing high level of anxiety there. So anxiety cuts across whether you're a customer or whether you're a worker, provider, right? So this is one example. Similarly, people who work in the e-commerce warehouses, they have very stiff targets and they have to pack so many things in so many in this 1 hour, etc. And they feel oppressed by that system. But oppression is also felt by the small seller on the big e-commerce website, because he doesn't understand the rules that he's playing under. So suddenly there is a penalty which he doesn't understand. Suddenly his product is delisted. So there is oppression that happens to no matter who you are, which stakeholder you are in the system. So that's the reason I thought that it's better to redo the whole thing, and the book got delayed by about 3 months because I had to redo everything, because I thought that's the honest way to say it. That's the true story to tell.
Probably.
And also there's, because we're talking about tech and we're talking about digitalization, it can get a little dry, right? I deliberately wanted to show the human face of technology and what we see as, digital commerce, etc. Because there are human beings behind that, driving it, using it, everything. And that comes out when you talk about emotions. Because
sure. You did start off by saying that at the beginning you only wanted to write about gig workers because there was this new plethora of jobs that had come in that was non-existent before. Gig economy is now being talked about, how it's going to grow manifold over the next couple of years as well. And this is just the beginning. Of course, the traditional forms of jobs, they are again being seen as at risk with, emerging technologies like AI. And then we want to understand what is the importance of gig economy, gig workers, and how is it going to grow. So far, we understand, the great part is, like you also mentioned, that specially abled people are actually getting the jobs that they would probably not get in a traditional form of a job or employment. So what is the negative consequence of being in the gig economy?
Okay, so the word gig, just to go back a little bit, the word gig basically means a job that you do piecemeal. It's a non-permanent job. You just do it, you get paid for it, you move on. So the word actually has its origins from in 1920s American jazz, where jazz musicians would just take all their instruments, play in a cafe, then they would get paid for it, play in a different cafe and get paid for it, like that. So gig basically means you're doing just a temporary job, right? And that's the way it started when Uber began in the US. So there were software professionals and students who just wanted to earn an extra buck, and they would drive the car in the evenings for some extra money. But that's not how it has played out in our part of the world. So what has happened here is that post-pandemic, all the people who lost their jobs and whose businesses shut down, in hordes they became cab drivers and delivery agents. The difference between what's happening here and what was happening in the US is that these are main providers for their family. This is their main livelihood. So they work 10 hours, 14 hours, and therefore it's sort of become what I call a permanent gig, which is like a contradiction in terms. It's like an oxymoron because there's no such thing as a permanent gig. A gig by definition is a side hustle. And therefore we have an informal kind of situation, but nobody knows whether it's informal or formal, and therefore there's no governing policy framework that is being laid out, although a few state governments are now passing acts to regulate that. But that has caused a lot of anxiety and anger among the workers.
Absolutely. Now, you do talk about a lot of technological disruption, how it's changing the lives as well. But what I would want to really understand is that, as a reader, what is the key message that you would want them to really take away from your book?
Okay, a message, if you want to call it that, is that I think we must remember that technology is a tool. It's not a substitute for living, right? So technology is an aid to life, but when it starts, dominating us in a way in which our essential humanness gets compromised, I think we have to be alert to that. And particularly more and more because, that ship has sailed. We are now in an era of more and more tech. So it's not going to reduce, right? So it's more important for us to understand, where the tech can be used as a tool for convenience and where it's changing who you are and your essential humanness. For example, the need to connect with other human beings is an innate human quality. But it's time to question whether that is getting reduced in various ways.
Okay. Now, I also wanted to take, some lessons for the budding entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to enter into this world of startups and probably just build on this new wave of gig economy, maybe, and apps is the new way that we are dealing with on an everyday basis as well, and newer apps are coming in, newer disruptions are coming in. What should startup entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs really look at taking away from, what has the technological disruption caused?
Yeah, so I think, any tech entrepreneur or a tech platform, the kind of platforms that I have spoken about in the book, they have all the information of all the stakeholders, right?
Yeah.
They know what the worker is doing, exactly where he is, they know what the customer bought, when. They give these notifications which
Yes.
say that, it's 10 p.m. last Sunday you ordered an ice cream, do you want
Yes.
one now? All of that, right?
Sometimes it's very scary that
Very
they know
scary,
so
that
much
they know so
about
much
us.
about you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that information is power, right? We're living in an age where information is power. So the tech platform, whichever company, whoever wants to open, has all the power because they have the data of all the other stakeholders. So to use that power responsibly is on their shoulders, right? A lot of people don't really know what they may send WhatsApp messages and they may make reels, but they don't know beyond that how tech influences them. So, and that's why you have, so many cases of digital arrest and things like that happening. So, it's up to the company to act responsibly with that information and, create a fair playing field for all stakeholders. Some sort of responsible capitalism is what.
So if the entrepreneurs don't do it, if the businesses don't do it, do you really see there are policy gaps that even the government can step in? Should there be laws around the same? You're already talking about how to protect gig workers, their rights. Some sort of laws are already getting implemented on the state level. What should the government be addressing in this, budding new world?
I think a lot has been spoken about data privacy and information, and whether tech platforms should really have so much power over customers, and customers don't even know how they're being nudged to buy stuff, right? And there's a lot of gaps there that need closure on whether how much information should a company have and how it should be used, and about data privacy, and those questions I think are already being hotly debated.
Yeah.
The other part is the gig worker, the welfare schemes for gig workers, the sense of security, because it's a job that can vanish anytime. So that entire area of gig workers and social security and defining their basic wage and the number of hours that they should work. All of that needs policy intervention. Also things like, there's a lot of flip-flop that happens because technology moves so fast that governments haven't really caught up with what's happening, and they can't keep pace. So for example, suddenly it's okay for motorbikes to be listed under ride hailing, and because they're private vehicles, right? So it's okay for them suddenly, but suddenly governments get up and say, no, but you're a private vehicle, you cannot ride. So there isn't consistency, which isn't good for the business. It isn't also good for the customer. So
absolutely. But do tell me also, since you've actually cut across and seen a lot of other countries beyond India where similar situations have erupted, are these issues also running across, say, South Asia and other countries as well?
So in other countries, I first started getting interested in other countries because I'm a development sector researcher. So in many contexts, we see South Asia as a single unit. And as far as the digital economy goes, I started reading up about it initially, and I found that though the market may be small and restricted to a thin middle class segment, and the maturity of the market may be different in different countries, but the vibrance of the space and the zeal of the customer to adopt apps and use it in daily life is just as much as it is in India. So in Nepal, for instance, there are more food delivery apps than there are in India. So that part is quite similar. At the same time, there are some differences, mostly coming from cultural differences. For example, in Nepal, girls don't blink an eye before they use a ride-hailing motorbike. They can sit behind and they just go, and they were very surprised when I said that, are you not hesitant about, sitting behind a stranger? Because that is an issue in in India, for example.
Yeah.
And so these kind of differences were interesting to note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the kind of future outlook that you have in this world? How is the world going to develop going forward? What are the challenges or the developments that we should be prepared about?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, it's only going to be more tech and more AI as we go forward, and as everybody keeps reminding us. So that's definitely going to have an impact on jobs, on the way we work, way we live, way we order stuff, way we buy, way we eat. It's already happening.
Yes.
Right? And it's only going to increase as we go further. So from, for businesses, I would think that it's worth thinking about what needs to be automated and what doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, do you really need a bot when a customer service person can be, more helpful and can understand the point better than a bot who will anyway direct you back there? So the kind of decisions that businesses are taking nowadays, I'm noticing, is like a sense of going towards blind automation. So automation may not be the answer everywhere, and it also has implications therefore on jobs and the number of jobs that we have. So if you want to automate everything, not only are you reducing customer experience, you're also cutting jobs where there could have been a human being, and the customer is happier also dealing with human being. You can see a lot of sites that even people like us who are supposedly tech savvy, you go to a site and then you don't know whom to ask. There's a bot and the bot can't understand you. Why? A human being would
be much faster, resolve much quickly,
more empathetic, more and can talk about out of context situations, not just what the template has taught. So
yeah,
I think
that's interesting. Tell me, towards the end, Vandana, you've written this entire very interesting piece across the board. What was your own favorite part of writing in this book?
So I really liked that chapter called Pleasure, in which there's a chunk of which deals about food delivery.
Yeah.
From the point of view of Gen Z. So it was very interesting because I could really see how Gen Z across countries pretty much thinks the same way. So there's a girl in Karachi, for example, whose mother is very upset with her because she's always ordering and she says ghar mein khao and all. So that could well be anybody it could be in Delhi, it could be in Bombay. There's a girl in Colombo who treats herself to small treats. If she comes back from office, she orders a little cold coffee for herself. If she goes to office, she orders something. So every time she feels that she has done something,
keep yourself
good, motivated, she orders something. So it was very interesting to understand how that Gen Z psychology works, irrespective of country. So I really liked writing that.
Wonderful. Well, Vandana, thank you so much for sharing such beautiful insights from your book, and I'm sure all the viewers must already be interested in finding out what exactly the world that is already surrounding us, we are already in it, but what are the intricacies and how do those things really come about is something that you'll be able to know if you go ahead and catch this edition for yourself, OTP Please. I would highly recommend all of you to please go ahead and grab that copy for yourself. Thank you so much, Vandana. It's been a pleasure.
Sakshi. It's been a pleasure too.